want to thank you so much for joining us today and welcome you into Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short, the father-son team, and the financial advisors behind Welcome Home Financial Partners. You can find them online, find out more about Ralph, Tim, the entire team, the website, welcomehomefp.com. You can also give a call, 804-635-3550. Once again, 804-635-3550. My name is Chris Swan. I'm pleased to be joined, as I am every show, with the Shorts. Ralph, Tim, glad to be with you once again. How you doing today?
Doing pretty good. How about yourself?
Doing well, thank you. You know, we were talking earlier about summer, how it's hopefully, well, people are enjoying some cooler weather right now, and people that aren't really from the area are saying, oh, that means fall's going to be around the corner. Not so much. I think we're in it for a little bit, but enjoying while we can. So hopefully you're staying, making the most of the weather while we've got it. Just as a reminder, kind of similar to retirement. You know, it's not going to be the 72 and sunny every day in retirement. There's going to be some ups and downs. There's going to be hot days. There's going to be wet days. But the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, what they want to do for you is create that all-weather plan to get you to, through, and beyond whatever may come down the line. And it all starts again with going to that website, welcomehomefp.com. So, Ralph, Tim, appreciate you joining us today, spending time with the listeners. So a question I think a lot of listeners and pre-retirees have is, would their portfolio be more successful with a high-priced Wall Street hotshot? Well, according to new numbers, over the last 10 years, having a simple index fund actually beat the big stockbrokers 85% of the time. So to quote Warren Buffett, people will try and sell you other things because there's more money in it for them if they do. Most good salespeople believe their own baloney. That's why I suggest people buy an index fund. Mr. Buffett known for his sayings, and a lot of them, holding true. What is your reaction to A, what he's saying, and then B, these numbers?
Well, I do tend to agree with him when he talks about good salespeople believe in their own baloney, right? But that's the whole thing. Is it a salesperson or is it a fiduciary? But I do believe that there's a lot of people that think, the hot shot on Wall Street is going to end up outperforming the market, or, finding the next hot stock or what have you. And that's what we talk to people about quite a bit, is there's a difference between investment planning, right? Wealth building and retirement planning. So retirement planning is going to be completely different than trying to find, the hot shot on Wall Street, to find your next digital currency that's going to take off like Bitcoin or whatever the case may be. But it's very important to, find something that's tried and true. And when you're looking for the next hot stock, that's where things tend to be a little bit volatile. I had a conversation with a guy a couple weeks ago, and he was talking about dabbling in the penny stocks. And he goes, what's the best strategy for it? And I was like, well, if you don't mind losing your money, you can go ahead and do what you want. But he'd ended up buying into I don't know what stock it was, but it was, I think, selling for 2 cents, and it got all the way up to 71 cents. Well, now he's sunk, I think it was about $2,000 into it. Now it's only worth about $70. So, it just depends on each individual situation. But I think a lot of people need to pivot from, trying to be a millionaire overnight, and making sure that, you're going to be in it for the long haul. And we talk to people about, patient money and impatient money. The impatient money, you've got to have protected. You need that for your lifestyle and retirement. But the patient money you can put into the market. And if you're trying to find, the next hot thing, or, being a little bit more aggressive with that money, that's okay, because you can be patient with it. And we see it a lot this year in particular, where a lot of people start selling when things go down. Well, that's generally the worst time that you can do that. Right. But once again, when it comes down to what you invest your money into, kind of, helps you or doesn't help you with that process. So I think, when you take a look at, hey, if we've got X amount of dollars in XYZ fund, whether it's an index fund or not, we've got to be patient. But once again, too, it depends on your age. We talk about 20-year-olds quite a bit on this show. I hope nobody gets offended by us talking about 20-year-olds, but you've got a lot of difference between somebody who's 20 or somebody who's 50 or 60, right? And I think that's a big piece of that. But once again, it's not cut and dry. It's everybody's individual situation. And it's not, hey, let's just put our money into an index fund or a mutual fund or this stock. It's all about the proper planning, if you will.
Yeah. And I would say I'm not going to disagree with anything that Warren Buffett would say, okay? Because I think the proof's in the pudding. He's been around for quite a while, and he's got quite a track record. So to argue against what he might be thinking might not be the best thing in the world for you. But the other thing is, most people, if they listen to somebody that's giving you 25 or 30% return, how long has that been for? Okay. how much is it costing you to have that advice? That's the things that people need to understand, because guess what? It's probably inconsistent performance. Yeah, you, like I tell people, yeah, some years you're going to hit it out of the park, even on an index. But guess what? Not every year is going to be that way, because the market does two things. It will either go up or it will go down. Nobody knows when it's going to do either. So you just have to be prepared to have the ups and downs in the markets and have that emotional roller coaster. And like Tim says, most people have a knee-jerk reaction when it comes to their money. And a lot of people that use a high broker, they probably are going to have trading fees. So if they sit there and trade a lot during the day or during the month, guess what? The fees are even going to be higher at that point in time. So most brokers, do you sit down with them and talk about your long-term strategy? Most people are just talking to a broker saying, I want it to grow as much as you can without any, this is where I want to go. And if you don't have a roadmap for where you want to go, it's kind of hard to get there, right, Chris? And yeah. I would say this to anybody. The first step in choosing anybody or a strategy is to know where you want to go. You need to understand where it is, so then we can help guide you as fiduciary, because, you know, I have 80-year-olds that they don't want to do anything but be in the stock market, even though it may not be the best thing in the world for an 80-year-old, but that's what their wishes are. They can withstand the ups and downs because they got plenty of money. But there are people out there that need peace of mind. They don't like or take a lot of risk. So those are two different strategies that when we sit down with people, we need to understand, where do you want to go and how much risk do you want to take and what is your end goal? Without any of that, it's very difficult to sit there. And that's why index funds are good for a lot of people, or some type of index you're following, because you don't have to worry so much whether it's the index annuity or whether it's an index fund. It's just giving you a little peace of mind. It's granted, you're probably not going to get the best that the market can give you, but maybe you're not going to lose as much when it goes down. Would you agree, Tim?
Yeah, and I think that kind of goes back to the time, right? You know, if you're 60 years old and you're planning on retiring next year, well, it's probably a different conversation. But if you're 30 years old and you've got another 20, 30, maybe even 40 years to get to retirement, which hopefully people can retire before the age of 70, but there's a lot of people who want to continue to work. And that's why it always goes back to this retirement roadmap that we talk about so often, because that's going to help you visualize where you're at, right? Where you're at, where you want to be, and how to get there. And whether it's an index fund, whether it's an annuity, whether it's stocks, whether it's bond, whatever, you know, it's all got to be part of the plan. And kind of to touch on Warren Buffett is, yes, I agree with a lot of things that he says, but even the great Warren Buffett will swing and miss from time to time. So, and that's the thing.
Babe Ruth did that, I think, right?
Yeah. But on the same token, is there's a big difference between his portfolio and my portfolio, right? So he can afford probably to take some of those losses that I probably cannot. So, and I think a lot of people listening can probably say the same thing. Chris, I know that you're about to chime in and say, "Oh yeah, same for me." So
Warren Buffett could take a hit, and the money that he loses, I would be glad to just have that money in loss. He's got the means to do so.
Oh, absolutely. And, you know, I think that's what's important, is because you don't always have to hit the home run, right? You know, just be satisfied sometimes with the single or the doubles, because, you know, you might not be able to have the batter behind you drive you in, or, you know, whatever. And I guess I'm just relating back to the Atlanta Braves this season because they're just not doing well. But it comes down to each individual situation. I think that's what's so important. Instead of trying to hit that home run every time you're in the market, you know, you got to rethink your strategy, because a lot of people, once again, they want to try to double their money overnight. Well, guess what? The more risk you take, the more reward, but also the more loss potentially as well.
And the other thing too is your retirement plan is just not about that investment that you have. It's about a plan that will allow you to live the lifestyle that you want by taking income out. It's all about the income in retirement. Yes, until you get to retirement, yes, it's going to be how much money can I make during those 40 years I'm working. But once you get to that point where you're fixing to retire, you need to take a step back and say, all right, where am I going to get my paycheck from? do I really want it to be here when I need it? And I think most people would.
Yeah.
So that's why you need to take a step back and rethink how much risk you're taking. And that's kind of what we go through with our process.
You want to have that consistency when you go through retirement to know that, because there are going to be monthly expenditures that are going to come in, you want to make sure that those are accounted for by something that isn't necessarily subject to the market, or if it is, that there's going to be, a consistent rate there. It will be there for you. Because in retirement, not going backwards is as important as those big gains. Yes, the home runs and stuff, they're fun, they're phenomenal, they're exciting to watch. Everybody wants them now and then. But the singles and doubles, that consistency is what gets you into, what the Braves should learn, right? It's what's going to get you into the playoffs and then hopefully farther into the playoffs and not just a play-in game. I'm also a little bit depressed about that, but we won't get into that. The Wall Street brokers, the big hotshots, the ones who can show these numbers, you can manipulate them in numbers to say whatever you want to say if you use a finite enough window. I was looking a second ago for, I don't know if you guys remember this. It was, I think, 2 or 3 years ago. Penn State sent out a tweet during the Super Bowl that they just got blasted for because the numbers, it says, a Penn Stater has appeared in every Super Bowl, and then in smaller print, except for 5 since 1967. I was like, well, if you put all those caveats in there, yeah, you can make it say whatever you want to say. You can go, oh, this has had a 20% return for the past 3 days, or, whatever. You don't want to be dazzled by those big numbers, because what they're not showing you is the losses. Like you said earlier, the gentleman who put in thousands of dollars and then had $70 to show for it at the end of the day. You want to look at the big picture. Remember that it is a marathon and not a sprint. You want that consistency in your retirement plan. And, hopefully with those home runs in there occasionally, but you're not chasing those big returns. That's what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, Ralph and Tim Short, as fiduciaries acting in your best interest, are going to do for you. Create that, as I said earlier, hopefully that all-weather plan. But you have to take the next step and reach out and set up a time to speak with them, 804-635-3550, or go online to the website at welcomehomefp.com. Yes, people want those big gains in retirement, or they want to see those big numbers occasionally, but they also want to know, what could I have done better in preparing for retirement? This question was actually posed to Olivia Mitchell, a professor at the Wharton School of Business, and she told Yahoo Finance 3 things came up in her research. People wish they had done. They wish they had saved more. They had waited longer to take Social Security. And then
older people regretted not having purchased lifetime income. Lifetime income streams would come from something like an annuity, where you purchase from an insurance company a lifetime income payout that will make it much easier for you to manage your expenses. If we explain to people how long they might live, in other words, their risk of living a very long time, they were much more likely to regret not saving and not buying lifelong income payments.
It goes back to that consistency, knowing that there would be that mailbox money, but it's not necessarily right for everybody out there. But why do you think people who have annuities generally like them? And why do you think the people who are planning for retirement are maybe skeptical of them?
Well, I think there's many reasons, but I know this was an actual professor, but man, if it didn't sound like that was AI generated.
Right. She's very,
yeah, you can kind of tell that was a professor speaking. But, when it comes down to the A word that we talk about quite a bit, it's not a one size fits all deal. I mean, there's a lot of people that benefit from having protection, but still participating in some market gains, or if it's the guaranteed lifetime income benefit. I think, especially when we take a look at, when we plan for, a couple's retirement, usually one half of that couple might have a pension, right? A lot of people, for some odd reason, I'm not going to say why, but for some odd reason, they want to take the highest payout. Mm-hmm. Well, the problem with that is, if you take the highest payout, more than likely you can't pass on any benefit to your spouse. And that's going to completely change retirement, because they probably won't pass at the same time. And if they're used to a certain level of income and now, a good portion of that income is now gone, then what? And I think that's where an annuity can come in, because you could have a joint survivor benefit there with some of the annuities. But also, once again, if you're just completely concerned about the stock market, and that'll tell you the same thing. We meet with people every day that are just concerned about, what the future holds, because the future is always uncertain. We don't know what tomorrow brings, right? But then there's the other side of the coin where, there's a lot of people that, I don't want an annuity. Well, why not? I don't know. I've just been told I don't want one. Okay, fair enough. So tell me more. That's all I got. Okay. Well, doesn't make a whole lot of sense to me to just base your judgment off of, what your buddy told you or your brother told you or your sister or in-laws or whatever, right? Go to the proper folks to get that advice. And I think that's where a lot of people go wrong, is because there's always the hearsay. And kind of going back to what you were talking about earlier, Chris, about, oh yeah, this is up 30% in the last 3 days. Okay, well, great. So once again, is you always have to go out, no matter whether it's retirement planning, financial planning, or just this day and age, you've got to go out once you hear something and do your own research and not just follow the trend or your buddies or your coworkers, because, annuity could be a really good part of your retirement planning. Now, is this something that we talk about once again with the 20-year-olds or the 30-year-olds? Maybe not quite as much. But if we're looking to have our money do a certain thing and provide some guarantees, annuity could be a really good place to be.
Chris, I don't believe anybody will turn down any type of lifetime income. Does that sound like you would want to not have that as a part of your retirement plan? Probably not. No. But it's how they spin it in the media and everywhere else. Because guess what? A lot of people are going to have two types of lifetime income that's not called an annuity. One of them is called Social Security. Mm-hmm. That's a lifetime income. And guess what? It's coming from the federal government. Okay. If you're lucky enough to have a pension, that is an income plan that's coming from your employer. Those are two types of lifetime income at that point in time.
So you bring up a really good point. How many people at this point in time complain and are scared that Social Security is going to diminish or go away? So that gives you your answer right there, is people don't want to turn down those lifetime payouts. So if you're worried about Social Security and that's an annuity, why don't you think of an actual annuity in itself to not be a good thing?
And I think most people need to understand that's what an annuity is used for, this type of income plan. Now, whether it's right for you or not, you have to sit down with the fiduciary to make sure that's going to work for you. And most people, and particularly brokers, investment brokers, they don't understand how an annuity works, why you use it. They just know they don't sell it. So why should they recommend it if they don't sell it? Okay. And there's so many different types of annuities out there, lifetime income, whatever you want to call them. Does it serve the purpose that you're trying to solve? I mean, everybody has an issue, and you just need to find those solutions to those issues. If your issue is income, then let's figure out how to do that. That might be a part of your plan. So understand that these programs are very complex. You need somebody that you can trust, but you need to verify that all the things that you've heard about may not be true. There are some annuities that has very high fees, but not all of them will. And, to make sure that your income you're prepared for retirement.
If you're trying to act in the client's best interest and you're not at least entertaining the options that could work for them, I don't know how you can, maintain that I'm working in their best interest. But, sit down and speak with the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, have that conversation. If they believe an annuity will work for you, if they think that that's going to be a right strategy for either income or, perhaps some long-term care, protection down the line or growth, they'll bring that to the table. They'll let you know, they'll present it. But at the end of the day, it is ultimately your decision to make. And so, get that education, get that insight, and then go from there and start developing that plan or revamping that plan. It's as easy as setting up a time to speak with them, 804-635-3550 or online at welcomehomefp.com. You mentioned the brokerage houses and how they don't bring annuities to the table because they're focused on the accumulation and it's not something that they offer. I'm going to go back to that Warren Buffett quote really quick, the first half of it. People will try and sell you other things because there's more money even for them if they do. If they don't offer it, it's not profitable to them. They're not going to entertain the possibility. But again, the team at Welcome Financial Partners, independent, agnostic as far as it goes to the approach to get your plan put together, but they want to make sure that it's going to work best for you. So just keep that in mind. Go to welcomehomefp.com, set up a time, have that conversation with them. Hall of Famer Ken Griffey Jr. Got to go back to baseball. Got to go back to someone in their encore career. He hung up his cleats years ago, but he's found a new side hustle as a credentialed media photographer. You might see him shooting MLB home run derbies, NFL games, MLS matches, and even the Masters. Griffey started taking pictures as a way of keeping others from distracting him at his kids' athletic events.
It was actually the only way I could see my kids. They were like, oh, Ken's here. And I was like, okay, I've got to pay more attention to what's going on. And I figured nobody's messing with the photographer. Well, let me pick it up. Let me try it. And I got a couple photographer friends who sent me a couple cameras and lenses and said, here you go. And didn't tell me anything about it. Just don't put it on auto.
And I think he's obviously, with the credentials, he's figured out a way to do that successfully. Retirees need a plan for their second act, their next act, as we were talking about earlier. How do you help them think about that next chapter? And is this transition just as important as having the financial means to do so?
Oh, yeah. And I find it interesting that was the route he took because of the reason, right? Yeah. So it is quite funny, but you understand. I mean, you're popular, you're a celebrity. I mean, I remember growing up playing baseball in school and I had Ken Griffey cleats, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that kind of dates him a little bit. So if he's listening, I apologize. But there's a lot to do with that. And there's a lot of people that we meet with that they want to have like part two of their life, right? The second act or whatever you want to call it. And a lot of them want to start their own business. They want to do their own LLC. They want to do whatever. What they don't factor in is the tax ramifications because, depending on what age you claim Social Security, that could really affect your taxation on Social Security, depending on the level of income that you make. Maybe you're really good at the next act, and now all of a sudden you were only anticipating maybe $10,000 or $15,000 of income, but now you're making 50, right? So that's always going to impact your taxation. I think that's probably the most thing that we see that's often overlooked, and I think most people aren't necessarily doing it to generate a whole lot of income. But then things will take off, which is good. Mm-hmm. But then also, too, is you might have to pay a little bit more income and maybe a lot more income. So that's why you really got to prepare for those things. So granted, we don't know how things are going to shake out and say, okay, hey, I want to open up my own LLC and I want to do X, Y, and Z. Well, now everything takes off and now we're exploding with income. We've already collected Social Security. We were already pulling out distributions from our IRAs or 401ks. You put all those things together, that's going to be a pretty healthy tax bill.
And people need to understand we here really do focus on the other side of the coin, not just the financial side, because we do bring to the table a lot. You have to have a mission. You have to have a purpose. Why are you getting up in the morning? Even in retirement. I mean, right now you're working, you have to be at work at 8 o'clock in the morning. So you leave the house at 7 in the morning to do the things that needs to be done. But when you are on Saturday, maybe your kids are older, you don't have to get up and go to sports on Saturday mornings or anything like that. You might sleep a little bit longer, but in retirement, every day's Saturday. Mm-hmm. So now what are you going to do? Just maybe not just get up in the morning and do the things that you always have, because guess what? You don't have anything else to do. It's unstructured. And that sometimes is more of a curse than it is a blessing, because guess what? We had somebody that came in and we were talking about him retiring, his retirement plan, and he didn't think about this. But guess what? When you're retired, you're going to spend more time with your spouse than normal because guess what? That may be a curse. It may be not a blessing. So those are things that we kind of mentioned a little bit. And sometimes it's you get a chuckle at them, but then they get to thinking about it and say, you know what? That may be something I did not think about. I might put into my plan and try and figure out. But, without a plan, you may not have any type of peace of mind about what you're going to do. You really need to make sure that you got a well-planned retirement program, whether it's going to the Y, whether it's going to have a part-time job, whether it's to babysit your grandkids, because we have a lot of grandmothers, that's what they are wanting to do. They want to retire so they can take care of their grandkids, so they don't have the baby sitting cost or, daycare center costs, things like that. But there's just so many things out there to consider that most people don't take into the thought process when they're starting to think about retirement, because guess what? The golden years, you're going to be able to stop work and do whatever you want, spend whatever you want, travel whenever you want. Guess what? Yes, you can do all those things, but it takes a plan. It takes financial plan. It takes retirement income plan. It takes a lot of thought and effort. And as a lot of people will tell us here, retirement is more difficult than we thought it was going to be, because we didn't realize that we were going to have to do all these things before we even retired. It is a process. We tell that to everybody, don't we, Tim?
Absolutely.
Start developing that plan sooner rather than later. It's never too soon to start planning for retirement. It's never really too late to start planning. There will be more steps you need to take, but you need to take into account, where that income's going to come from. What is healthcare going to look like down the line, and taxes. Because I think I could speak for everyone here at the table. We want our listeners to be successful in whatever it is that they achieve, whether it is, they're still in the growth process or the accumulation process, be successful in that. When it's a side project that they do, that encore career, be successful in that. Who else wants you to be really successful is Uncle Sam, because they're going to get a cut of that. Find ways to make sure that you pay what you are required to, but not a penny more. That is what the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners does, getting you to, through, and beyond retirement. Another quick thing, I'm going to speak on behalf of everyone sitting at the table right now. Spending more time with our spouses, our respective spouses, not a bad thing. Just going to go ahead and get that out there. Go ahead and put that in there.
Yeah, that was a slippery slope.
Yeah. No. Going to save a little face here. But the team at Welcome Home Financial Partners, they're here to listen to you, to start developing that plan, crafting that plan around what it is you want to achieve in retirement, and make sure that it is as enjoyable and achievable as possible. You just need to take the next step, reach out, set up a time to speak with them. Go to welcomehomefp.com, find out more about them, reach out there. You can also give a call right now, have that conversation, get on their calendar for the week ahead, 804-635-3550. One last time, 804-635-3550. As always, want to thank you for joining us here on Aspire to Retire with Ralph and Tim Short. Hope you have a great week ahead of you. Stay safe out there. Gentlemen, appreciate the time as always. Hope you have a great week as well. And as we wrap up, I'm going to leave you with the final word.
All right. Well, thank you, Chris. We appreciate your time as well. But yeah, we talked about quite a bit, some fun, some not quite as fun, but I think it's important to really take into consideration what you're trying to accomplish with your money in your retirement, because everybody's retirement is going to look a little bit different. So whether you come into the office, whether you want to come to a First Friday event or another event that we've got around town, give us a call, visit the website. We'd love the opportunity to meet you and see how we can help you out. So once again, we want to thank everybody for listening, and take care.
All content is for information purposes only. It is not intended to provide any tax or legal advice or provide the basis for any financial decision, nor is it intended to be a projection of current or future performance or indication or future results. Opinions expressed herein are solely those of Welcome Home Financial Partners and Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC. The information contained in this material has been derived from sources believed to be reliable, but is not guaranteed as to accuracy and completeness, and does not purport to a complete analysis of the materials discussed. All information and ideas should be discussed in detail with your individual advisor prior to the implementation. Each individual investor's situation is different, and any ideas provided may not be appropriate for your particular circumstance. Advisor services are offered by Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC, a registered investment advisor in the state of Virginia. Being registered as an investment advisor does not imply a certain level of skill or training. Insurance products and services are offered through WPI Holding, Virginia Insurance License Number 138509, an affiliated company. The information contained herein should in no way be construed or interpreted as a solicitation to sell or offer to sell advisory services to any residents of any state other than the state of Virginia or where otherwise legally permitted. Welcome Home Wealth Advisors, LLC and Welcome Home Financial Partners are not affiliated with or endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any government agency.